All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the wasmCloud community meeting for Wednesday, July the 13th. I have a very exciting demo to start off today with, so let's go ahead and get that started. I'm going to share my whole desktop because it's got all kinds of things. So you'll have to let me know if you can see everything. And if it's normal, I know it's like a wide monitor. So please stop me if anything is too small or you can't see anything, etc.
Brooks, would it
So
make sense? Would it make sense because this is when this goes on the recording later? It's not going to be. It's easy to see this on YouTube. Could you
yeah.
maybe maximize these for a whole window and then maybe flip back and forth so people can see the detail?
Sure. I think I should be able to do most of it in the browser. So I'll do one window at a time. Let me see if I can just organize it into roughly the same size because I know that that affects.
On your Mac, if you full screen, then you can three finger over. It'll make it, like a separate monitor instance on the top. I
Oh,
don't know if that would work or not.
gotcha. Yeah, okay. Then it will be a big terminal. Let me set that up. Okay. Yep, I will shamelessly show my geeking out over the web stuff. Great wallpaper. I'm surprised Mac didn't prevent me from setting this like 150 megabyte wallpaper, but they were cool with it, so I will take it. So today I wanted to show off some of the work and how you can take a look at what we've done with open telemetry tracing in wasmCloud. So get this Zoom thing out of the way. I wanted to make it first really easy for anyone to start out and look at what traces look like. I know that we've demoed them in the community call before, but I wanted to outfit one of our most popular examples with the tracing, and so that you can just go run a one-liner and make sure that you can see what tracing looks like, and then I can talk about how you set this up for yourself. If anybody has any questions as I go along, feel free to just stop me, but I'll pause at the end too. So in order to take a look at tracing in wasmCloud, all you need to do is download or clone the examples repo. And in the pet clinic directory, we've done a little updating of our run script to start some of the latest actors and providers, the providers that support tracing. And additionally, under Docker, we have a Docker Compose that's going to run the database, NATs, and then additionally Grafana and Grafana Tempo. These are the things that are going to collect traces and provide like the visualization. The last thing you'll notice down here are two environment variables for the wasmCloud host. This actually makes it so that those traces get exported to the Tempo container. So really those are the only things that you'll need if you want to set this up on your own. And of course, worth mentioning that you don't have to do this in Docker. Just a little bit easier for anyone coming for the first time, just to spin it all up. There's a Tempo and Grafana container. You don't have to install anything locally. We were already using Postgres in a container because it's kind of a pain to do, across different operating systems. So all you need to know is once you clone the examples repo, we have this little checkup script that we'd recommend you running ahead of time just to make sure you have wash and some of the terminal utilities that we use. But all you do is run run.sh all. And this will launch up your Docker containers for the database and the wasmCloud host, insert in some good test data from some of the Cosmonic employees or the wasmCloud maintainers, and then start up all of the pet clinic resources. So this is great, actually, if you haven't run pet clinic before. This couple of updates to this script will make it nice and quick and fun for you to get started. And after a few seconds here, we start actors and start providers. That pet clinic example will be ready. So as the HTTP and SQL providers are starting up, increase it a little bit more. The last line here is saying that pet clinic started and is available. Yay. So if we go to our browser, I can refresh on the wasmCloud host and you can see, our entire pet clinic application. And on localhost 8080 is the actual pet clinic. So you see Brooks, Kevin, Taylor, and I, and Connor and I, we have all of our dogs in here, a couple of different vets and all that fun stuff. So this launches the pet clinic application for you, but the real thing I think you'll be more interested in is the tracing part. So if we go back to our terminal here, you'll notice under the Docker folder, there is this logs.txt. I'm basically taking all the logs and just putting it in a text file to make it easy to find. We can tail that and take a look at some of the logs from Tempo. You'll see a few things here, including span ID and trace ID. And just if you haven't used OpenTelemetry tracing before, I had not before we did it with wasmCloud. A trace ID is like an associated set of functions or basically a whole list into an operation. And then an individual span can be a smaller set of logic, a single function call. And pretty much the way that we approach this in wasmCloud is a single invocation all the way through the stack is one trace, and individual parts of that are a span. So if I hit enter, just to do a little delineation here, and I click on the vets endpoint. So I click on the vets tab. This makes an HTTP request to the API, which then actor to actor calls the vets actor, and then issues a invocation to the SQL database provider. You'll see we get a couple of logs from wasmCloud saying that some of these things were happening, but we also get kind of a long trace here of, you can see that they all have the same trace ID, but a couple of different spans. So you can copy this trace ID. And if we go back into our browser, I actually set it up so that Grafana is running on localhost 5050. And if you go to the Explore tab and select Tempo here, we can actually query that trace ID. If I can get Zoom to move out of the way, run this query up here in the top right, and you can see the full trace through our entire wasmCloud system for that vets endpoint. And this is really cool because this starts at the HTTP request, goes from the HTTP server provider down to the Clinic API actor, which then does a couple of logs and then actor to actor calls. You can see the pet clinic vets actor on the vets.list vets operation. And then you can see the further traces in the vets actor and eventually all the way down to the query in the SQL database provider. So this is super valuable to see how all of this data and how all of the functions flow through a wasmCloud system. And there are a few other things that make this really awesome that I like to show. So this is a successful trace, a nice, good example of what like a full call through the wasmCloud system. I'll go to owners just to keep this easy. But one thing this can really help with as a developer is debugging. So if we were to do something like say you're going through your CI, you're deploying this application and you left the vets actor commented out. So you don't start the vets actor at all. We come to our application and we click on vets, nothing's going to show up. We don't have that actor actually running. We can come and grab that trace from that. You can see on your own in the logs that there was an error, but if you grab the trace ID associated with that error and we come back to your tracing backend, we take a look at that, you can see that there was a problem with the trace all the way down. If you check out something like host call, maybe it's outbound RPC, I think host call, you can see that the vet.list vets actually did have an error, and specifically that the message timed out. So then you can go on to debugging and finding out why that happened. Or for example, if you have the vets actor actually running, and you didn't put a link definition for it. So instead of, you started everything correctly, you just didn't link the vets actor to the Postgres provider. Then if we go to the vets endpoint, we're actually going to see, something similar in the application, but in the, if you take a look at the trace from, let's see, can you see it here? I'm like scanning my whole thing. I know that it's coming out of tempo. I was just looking for it in the wasmCloud log. We can trace that issue and see that it makes it a little bit further. But as soon as we got to the wasm guest call, the vets.listVets operation failed because there was a missing, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. There was a missing link definition for wasmCloud SQL DB. So what this really this really helps from a developer perspective. Even starting this when you're writing an actor for the first time, it can be really nice to see exactly where these calls make it in your system. I have a couple of things that I'd love to mention about how this works and how this is enabled. Anybody have any questions so far?
Andrew, I know you and I have had some offlines on this, and have been excited about this coming along. One of the areas what Brooks is trying to show in this demonstration is, how we can, zoom all the way into, the difference between invocation requests and waiting, or waiting for like a machine learning model to run or something along those lines to run. Do you think that this is going to give us the quantitative data we need in order to continue those explorations?
I think so. I think, can I ask a question? Maybe I didn't completely understand. The spans and the traces will work for tools that have been instrumented with these spans and traces, right?
That's right. And I have a little more on that, but I'll let you continue if you had kind of a two-parter.
Yeah, so like wasmCloud's all instrumented, but once you get inside maybe the machine learning backend, like inside TensorFlow, it will not be instrumented, correct?
Unless the TensorFlow backend actually is instrumented and does like exporting, then you'll see kind of it. You'll see the trace stop at where you call into the TensorFlow backend and then resume afterwards. So you'll see the block of time. You just won't see what's taking a specific amount of time inside TensorFlow.
Okay. So I think this is extremely useful then for the entire system flow, right? And then if you wanted to then profile inside one part of one of these steps, then you'd probably have to bust out a different kind of profiler. Is my understanding correct there?
When you say different parts, are you talking about specific wasmCloud things, or like in your same example, like if you wanted to profile TensorFlow more specifically, you don't have control over the code base and you can't instrument it?
Well, yeah, definitely the TensorFlow example, but I think also if there was something in NATS that was slow.
Yeah, you'll see all that. What you will see is, if we take the machine learning example that we've been building around, the BMW Christoph example, the one we've been presenting, what you will get is the actor. There's a kind of like a three-step process there. There's the preparation actor, so you'll get the how much work is it to prepare the images for the machine learning model, all the insight there. Then you'll get the invocation to the machine learning model request itself, and then you'll get the how much work is there on the parsing the the request, interpreting the output of the model, and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's super valuable. I guess I'm always poking for more like, okay, what if we need to profile inside one of these steps? But I think at this point, this is extremely useful.
Well, I think for the question that we were, and I've pulled some Brooks, I apologize, I've pulled some extra context here into this discussion. I'm kind of down a deep rabbit hole here, and I'll get out in just a moment. But what it'll let us do is assume that those models are black box, Andrew, and are we running them on the edge, or are we running them in the cloud? And then sort of use all the other context around that and say, here is maybe compelling reasons for where we direct those.
Yeah. Will you be able to tell where from these traces where stuff is running? I mean, I guess if you look inside the,
yeah, we would be able to tell that.
Cool.
Just to address that most recent question, Kevin, right? I saw you had your hand up, but like, for example, you can see this Postgres provider, you can see that may be a cluster ID, but you can see where these things are running, what their ID is, actually even what line of code the trace is actually happening at. It's some pretty neat visibility. Kevin, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, like, I don't know where the TensorFlow stuff is being run. I'm not sure I have that context, but if, let's say, the TensorFlow stuff is being run inside a wasmCloud capability provider, all wasmCloud capability providers have the ability to automatically emit trace data to the same place that the wasmCloud host is emitting to. So a machine learning provider could emit a whole bunch of profiling information before and after, handing off to TensorFlow, so that you can sort of shrink the amount of black box you have in that span.
So here, there are two more things that I wanted to mention, talking about instrumenting things and what you as a wasmCloud developer actually need to do. If you notice, looking at this instrumentation, the things that are instrumented here are the HTTP server provider. These are all coming, the wasmCloud are coming from the wasmCloud host, the kind of wrappers around an actor that allow it to get a NATS message and things like that, and the SQL provider. You'll notice these are all things that you, as a wasmCloud developer, don't need to touch. And that's actually exactly leads into my next point, which is, in order to take advantage of this, all you need are a version 55 or later version of the wasmCloud host, using the latest versions of the capability providers that are instrumented for OpenTelemetry, and then making sure that you just have a tracing backend like this Grafana Tempo to actually export to. There's nothing you actually need to do to hook up your actors to this tracing. And it's actually, our ultimate goal for actors to not care about that at all. Further on our mission of no boilerplate, you just get this tracing included for free if you like it. And if you have your own custom capability providers, I'd recommend taking a look on our documentation site. It's likely going to merge right after this community meeting. There is a page on tracing under app development and then developer workflows. It's called OpenTelemetry Tracing. You should be able to search for it as well. But this talks about walking through this example that I went through today. So if you'd like to replicate this and remember what you need to do, this has example, or the instructions for running the pet clinic sample, that same kind of trace that you were looking at. And then if you're setting up tracing for your own project, how to do that, how to instrument your functions in a capability provider. And as always, our examples and example capability providers would be a good use for that. So really, the TLDR is that if you want to see this happen and you have your own wasmCloud project, just update the OCI references for your providers, update the wasmCloud host, and then run a tracing backend, and you'll be able to check out some traces in your app. Now, I did want to mention one more thing, Andrew. I think you brought up a really great point, and I wanted to show it to you in this trace. You said, well, when you're looking at a function and there's a little bit of a gap, and you say, okay, this is maybe a TensorFlow thing or maybe a NATS thing. How do you actually get visibility into that? And this has already helped us immensely as developers of wasmCloud. I wanted to point out that async NATS 17 was just released, and happy to show up in the README here. But we noticed when we took a look at our traces in Tempo, and I apologize for not actually having one for you, we were seeing that the connections using the async NATS crate could take over 2 seconds just to create a NATS connection. And NATS connections usually take, you know, in the couple hundred milliseconds to create. So that was a little strange, but using that, we could narrow down exactly where in the NATS library there actually was that bottleneck. I mean, I forked the async NATS library and I added some print lines around, but we could see exactly why something that should only be taking a couple hundred milliseconds was taking 3 or 4 seconds in some of our applications. So this is huge for that. And also you can see even in this example that we're looking at here, this entire request took around 90 milliseconds. This is all running locally. And if you look at what actually takes up time here, you see most of it actually completes by, what is that? By around 30, sorry, I can't do that. Most of it completes by like this mark here, which I guess is somewhere around 15 to 20 milliseconds. And you see this long kind of waiting period before this wasmCloud outbound RPC ends up picking it up and sending the request back, but most of it finishes quickly. And so what this gives us a hint for is, hey, maybe we should go take a look at any function calls that happen after query that aren't instrumented, or to drop into the NATS library and take a look for specific bottlenecks there for why this has a waiting period. So this is huge for even if you don't own the library, for finding possible performance things to improve. And this is, please take this in no way as a criticism of the async NATS library. The folks have been awesome with putting it together and super responsive. They just released that fix yesterday for async NATS 17. I reported it yesterday. So they like fixed it, got it out, and you know, we're looking forward to working with them a lot more.
Look,
so
you
yeah.
know, the logs were an X-ray machine, and this distributed tracing instrumentation that's now included is like having an MRI. You know, we've just got another whole understanding of the whole call stack top to bottom, and it's just been so powerful for, we have a bunch of apps at Cosmonic that we have built and are built on top of wasmCloud. And it's just so powerful for us to, when we turned it on, we got all these new insights into ways to make our products better. And I hope others have the same experience with wasmCloud as well. Yeah, so I hope that you all go and try this out. Take a pretty screenshot of the nice big trace and give it a try for whatever wasmCloud apps that you actually have running. And as usual, please reach out to us in Slack if you have any trouble getting this set up. We try to make it as easy as possible, but there are always some friction points with setting up a new service, like if you've never set up Tempo before, for example. Kevin?
Yeah, are we sending like a free t-shirt to whoever comes up with the deepest trace for a wasmCloud execution?
We should. Yeah, requirement, it needs to be what? It needs to be too big for an ultra wide monitor to actually render. It needs to break the Tempo CSS.
Yeah, it either needs to break the Tempo CSS or needs to exceed the resolution of a 35-inch monitor.
Optionally, if you can make it big enough that the James Webb telescope can't take a picture of it, then you get 2 free t-shirts.
Yeah, how big is that trace? Oh, it's 3 light years.
John, you had a good question in the chat. Does Tempo come with open source Grafana or only with Grafana Cloud? It comes as a container, so you're welcome to, like, we're not using any license or anything. Let me check it out and share really quick. So as far as I know, we don't have any Grafana license or anything to set up. It's just, we just run Grafana. I include some YAML manifests in here, and also the tempo container. That was one of the reasons why we picked it. It was so simple to set up.
Yeah, everything in the that we're using on those Docker images is the free open source stuff. It doesn't use any of the paid services.
I figure it's also worth mentioning, and I mentioned this a little bit in the documentation, but you don't have to use this with Grafana Tempo. This is compatible with any tracing backend that supports OpenTelemetry. Like, for example, us at Cosmonic, we're taking a look at things like Honeycomb and Datadog, and I know that there are other open source products like Jaeger and Zipkin that also do the same kind of collecting and visualization. So if you have your own stack for tracing already, would really love to hear how it goes with setting it up, if there's any additional things that you needed to do, because there was nothing that we have had to do additionally to make this support other tracing backends.
You know, Brooks, I think that it's super helpful if we can be explicit. Does it make sense for us to create, you know, a quick, you know, FAQ page for like, here's how to set this up with Honeycomb, here's how to set this up with Zipkin, here's how to set this up with Jaeger? Or is it all, do you think, just, you know, more their docs?
I think it's definitely more their docs. The big benefit we get is that if the collector supports OTLP, then we can emit to it. And so then, you know, we can probably just add a little note that says, you know, if you want to go find out how to do this for your favorite collector, just look up how to configure OTLP for it.
Yeah, all you need to do from the wasmCloud side to get this to export is these two environment variables. So the OTel traces exporter is OTLP, and the endpoint, I have it going to the tempo container here. But like, you could send this to like a console address or, you know, what have you. But that's a good call. I can add this to the OpenTelemetry documentation that we're adding and just say, hey, these are the two things you need to set up for the host. That's a cool. John, do you want to ask that question?
Yeah, sorry, audio challenge today. Yeah, this is something that comes up a lot of work. You know, just not just work, but for fun too. But like, let's say you have multiple, you know, InfluxDB instances, like locally, maybe in the cloud and other places. It'd be nice if you almost had like a plugin as a data source in Grafana, so that you could route your queries locally, I guess, first. But then if you can't, you know, get the data you need like locally from like an actor maybe, to then go to the cloud, to skip hops kind of thing. And right now that's kind of a pain to manage with most of the tools that are out there that I found.
So there's a couple of different levels where that problem can be addressed. So the easiest is if we use Nat's leaf nodes. If you're using a Nat's leaf node and the capability providers are reasonably aware of that behavior, then a wasmCloud lattice will automatically let you query local, and then if there's no local listener, query remote. If you want to choose where you query based on load, that's a pretty cool use case, but I wonder if Grafana is the best tool for that, because one of the things that Grafana does and a lot of the OTLP collectors do is they're async and they cache things, and so they tend to run behind real-time traffic. And in fact, in really large production systems, they're often not even recording all traffic. There you configure a sampling rate and they only sample a subset of the traffic. So like if you were to make load balancing decisions based off of Grafana data, you might end up making decisions based on, how heavy the load was 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I guess I was thinking like almost like if you used like the wasmCloud host as an actual data source, so that wasmCloud and Nats are basically figuring that stuff out, and Grafana is just pointing to whatever it points at, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I'm not married to Grafana. I just know everybody kind of knows about Grafana. Just wondering if that came up. That's a common use case I see people struggle with.
Yeah, I personally have heard a lot about Grafana, but this is actually my first time using it for this kind of tracing backend. I know that there's a ton more to the product than just tempo. So I'm glad, Kevin, you had some insights there. All right, well, thank you all for tuning into the demo. We're really proud of some of the tracing stuff and looking forward to, I think we're gonna nerd out over the biggest trace. I like that challenge. And it's gonna be it's already really helpful for us developing both wasmCloud and applications with wasmCloud. So it's been a lot of fun, and I will take little to no credit of actually setting up a lot of the tracing. Other people on the team like Steve and Taylor and Kevin did an awesome job with getting the host instrumented, the capability providers instrumented, and things like that. All right, well, that was what I had for the demo. And I guess we got about 20 minutes left, so I'll move on unless anyone has some kind of short, like 5-minute demo. We can go ahead and move on to any kind of community updates, things happening in the WASM community. Jordan, do you have a demo or a question?
Just something to share. So I can figure out how to. Nope, I can't share. Help me, Brooks.
There you go.
Thank you. So as everyone knows, YouTube was down for 10 months because it definitely wasn't me. But the last month and 2 months of videos have now been uploaded, and the last one's processing right now. So here in about an hour, if you've missed anything dating all the way back to April, you'll be able to catch up with it. So that's one. Second one is, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Simple Icons. More or less, it's a pretty cool little package and CDN plugin you can use for like importing like SVGs and whatnot. And pow, look at that. In the next release, we are actually going to be part of it. So Brooks did a really good job of helping me tell explain to them like, hey, we don't meet your metrics yet, but we will. And they said, okay. So I think probably the next day or two, you'll be able to just pull in one of these JS deliver package.com, throw wasmCloud right there, and utilize our SVG as you see fit. And I think they have like Angular, Vue, and all these libraries. So that's really all I wanted to share. Small update.
It
I
makes
got
it awesome. Maybe small. It's pretty interesting, so that makes it awesome. I'm gonna have to go figure out all of the thousands of places I'm gonna go start slapping wasmCloud logos now.
The other thing, Brooks, if you want to share, I don't know if we share. Give me 1 second to get back to the right channel. If y'all were looking at Brooks' terminal, I dropped it in the random channel the other day, but where do I screen share? Slack. Yeah, so if you use Starship and you go throw that in your configuration, you'll get the fun little wash tags in your terminal, so you know what context you're using. Because I'm at like 4 or 5 contexts now, and I can only imagine what Brooks is at. So there you go.
Yeah, I would love to show that off. Let me change something real quick so it's actually a fun demo. We'll be real quick, I promise. But you may have seen that I have wash right here at the front because I also use Starship and immediately put this in as soon as Jordan sent it. If I take a look at the context that I have one that I was debugging an NGS connection, one to help Liam do demos, one for host config, which just automatically uses the local host, and then GCP free. So if I do wash control, get hosts or something, I'm using my local host config. So I didn't kill anything. So this is my local host that's running Pet Clinic. You can see all the Pet Clinic stuff. And if I do wash context default and I change that to GCP free, ta-da, it shows GCP free. And if I do wash control get hosts, hopefully my thing actually, yep, that worked. This is actually reaching out to a host that I'm running on GCP. It's the free tier. I love running little demos on here, like the I have my wood dice thing running there right now. I don't know if I actually showed that. It's fun if you curl this endpoint. I've used Kevin's, like one of the first crates Kevin wrote with somebody else for a dice roller, and it's a wasmCloud actor that rolls a D20 for you, which is really fun. Okay, whatever. Went on a little side tangent here, but I do love
Brooks,
that.
how do I have 100 open tabs if I'm using this?
How do you have
you just shouldn't I just have a separate tab open for each one of those contexts?
The terminal supports multiple tabs, so you're covered there, Liam.
Oh, I can have Starship in each tab. I can have a fleet of Starships, all with context. I love it. I have a quick demo, Brooks. Unfortunately, I don't have the ability to share my screen.
Sorry, I'm out of shares for today. I can't give any more away. Can you reenact your
turn? Just a few notes. Lots of good things open. You can now get registered for KubeCon if you are interested. Early registration is open. The premium registration is $1,700 by the time you get to last minute. I think we're still 2 discounts deep, so it's close to 1,000. The really early bird registration is like 600 or 700, but I think that already passed. And of course, CFP is open for Cloud Native Wasm Day, so please feel free to sharpen your pencils. I really encourage you to think about submitting whatever you're working on. Cloud Native Wasm Day, the last few years, I don't know if I'll be chair again going forward, but I was the chair for the last year, and we really work hard to recruit a diverse set of stakeholders and attendees and participants to the call. Last year, we also did have wasmCloud talks at multiple other cloud native events. So I could see a distributed tracing one, maybe around Open Observability Day, or something at Cloud Native Telco Day, or any of the other things. Of course, the wasmCloud team would be delighted to support you in your activities. If you're going out and want to help prepare a talk or reach out to the community, please don't hesitate to let us know and ask.
I had one more fun thing that I would love to share from just like general WASM community. Justin, you actually put this in our Slack yesterday that I thought well, it was really fun. The WASM 32 Wazi support for Tokyo. I know that this, Tokyo is used so ubiquitously across the Rust ecosystem. This is pretty exciting looking at them adding this. It is worth mentioning as we it is worth mentioning as you look at this PR that this is not full Tokyo support for WASM 32 Wazi. If you take a look at this meta one, which I actually found it at the bottom of this issue here, there are a couple more tasks to stabilize this, and like some of these are little things that they need to do. But very notably, Wazi lacking the API for connecting a TCP stream or binding to a TCP listener. This is probably the biggest blocker for this getting fully supported. But it's really interesting to see, and I'd love to keep track of this as they proceed, because of course these are the kind of things that we look at with wasmCloud for better ways to support what the general community is doing. So I don't know if anybody had any comments or questions on this specifically, but I thought it'd be fun to bring it up as we come across things like this.
So essentially, we can have in WASM spawning of tasks.
I think that is part of it. If we, if there was full Tokyo support for WASM, then the spawning of tasks, which as long as WASM is single threaded, then of course it may just be kind of a facade. But things like accessing time through Wazi or through the Tokyo time library, and then eventually opening sockets and things like that,
Nice.
is what would be needed.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're looking at writing an actor in today's Rust SDK, you'll notice that there are async functions in there, and we're not using Wazi, so what ends up happening is those end up being pulled by a single threaded executor, and hopefully in the future it'll be a smooth transition so that we can just compile our multi-threaded code and have it magically work in Wazi.
It's a fun meeting today.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Brooks, what else you got?
I don't think that I have anything. Liam, didn't you have something that you wanted to talk about?
I already talked about it. Remember the whole joke? Yeah, I didn't have sharing permission. Oh, I did have something else. Thank you, Brooks. You just kicked me kicked me in the shins. Liam, actually, Justin, you mentioned earlier, but just looking around, there are a number of companies that are hiring folks to work on and around the ecosystem, including where I work at Cosmonic. So if anyone is interested, there are a number of recs that are out now, and there are more recs on the way that we're posting up on our website. So the wasmCloud community has just grown leaps and bounds over the last year, especially. Our core contributors went from a dozen or so to over 120 at least, that the last time I looked, and it's still just continuing to grow in leaps and bounds. So I encourage anybody that's interested to look around, and I would be humbled if anybody would want to come and work with us on wasmCloud and the ecosystem.
One more thing to just plug for my open PR on community governance and docs and stuff that I presented last week. I will pull a link and drop it in chat real quick, but if you have any thoughts or concerns or whatever, we're leaving it open the rest of, I believe this week was my plan, and then next week we'll be merging it in. So please give any feedback there if you have any, and that'll be it.
All right, yeah, thank you, Liam. Let's see. Then now I think it's time for open floor. Anything anybody wants to talk about? Any questions from today or from something, whatever? Open floor to anyone.
So Brooks, I was following along with the pet clinic example. I think I have it almost working. Once we're done recording, we stay on for a couple minutes and make sure I actually have it working.
Andrew, would you mind sharing your screen, just doing a live debug session? I mean, I have no problems with this hanging on the end of a call. I mean, I think that folks that are following along at home, I know we do usually have a couple, 100 to 200 people that watch the videos from the meetings, and maybe somebody's been following along and they may have some same questions you do.
So you want to keep it on the recording?
Yeah, if that's okay. I mean, I would say, maybe ask the powers that be to let you share your screen.
If it's something that you're okay with doing, Andrew, I mean,
yeah, let me make sure I have no sensitive things on my screen. Okay, yeah. All right, so what's going on here? I grabbed the wasmCloud examples, went into the pet clinic directory. I checked out the branch that Brooks, you had. I was not able to run initially checkup.sh, so I installed Postgres, and then I installed Wash. Just a note, I went with the cargo install Wash CLI option. I tried one of the others and it was installing too many things, so I just went with cargo install. So I hope that's okay. Then I ran run.sh all. That didn't actually completely work. The actors were not started or something. So all the Docker containers looked healthy and they looked all great, but the actors and links weren't there. So then I just reran it again, and that seemed to make things better. Over in here, is it 4,000?
Yep, yeah, that's it. The dashboard.
We might have a problem with my firewall. Okay, so this is on a, oh shoot. Let's see. Yeah, this, we may or may not be able to get to this. For some reason, certain ports are especially protected, so whatever. But I was able to see the dashboard when I physically logged into that machine. And after the second run.sh run, I was able to see actors and links. With your advice, Brooks, I was able to go into here and I just sort of picked a random trace ID from somewhere. This is the part that I actually don't know if we're doing this right. So then I pulled it in here, put the trace ID in here, and I ran the query. But the problem is this is just a sub part of the actual entire request. And so what am I doing wrong here?
So you're actually, I mean, you're doing everything right, which is good. This one request or whatever that you see, this is the health check for the capability provider. So this is the full thing. It's not part of the pet clinic. So, you know, this is the biggest issue that we've seen with, I wouldn't say issue, but with Tempo, there's not really that we could find a good way to like search through logs for things. So what I would recommend if you wanted to see a better trace, were you able to hit the pet clinic at localhost 8080?
I know this will work, so let's go.
Yeah, perfect. You can just curl it.
Okay.
Great. Then
and now I should see at the bottom one of these, right?
Yep. So you
curling that is the JavaScript error. I don't know how far down the rabbit hole that trace is going to go, but
I think.
Oh, it looks like
what?
So that is, I mean, it's kind of cool when you do, this is going to be a cooler trace. Actually, if you want to paste this one in, this one is actually going to the Pet Clinic API, and then it should reach out to the Pet Clinic UI actor. So you can see kind of the actor to actor call to the other, to the UI actor, which is the one that Taylor wrote that'll fetch the JavaScript and everything for the Pet Clinic UI.
Okay.
So I love how when everyone gives that example, they still talk about like, oh, like Taylor just put the UI stuff. And it's like, I literally just was like, took this big like garbage can of like UI stuff and dumped it into the Wazi module. And it was like, everyone's like, yay. So I just get a kick every time someone talks about it.
So yeah, Andrew, if you wanted to see like the SQL, for example, you could curl localhost 8080/vets, and that'll give you a, that'll invoke the vets actor, and you'll get the same thing that we were looking at.
Okay. And now if I go to here, great.
So grab the one above that, the 732.
Okay. How did you know that this was the wrong one?
Only because you can see the 732 repeats a bunch of times, and then the one after that was just a single. So I think it's just another health check.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Let it be known that it is as easy to do this, so easy to do this, that somebody can do it in the tail end of our community call in the background.
Even Andrew can do it, so it's easy. Okay, cool. Well, thank you.
Yeah, and you can, oh, that's cool. You can draw like a little window to look into.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what's all this time? What's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't know how we survived up into this point without tracing.
Yeah.
Yep. But, you know, this is the kind of stuff that now that we have this gives us so much more information for doing like performance tuning for specific things.
Yeah, it's awesome to know, you know, it's you can't blame Postgres now, right? It's like, well, there's something in this big span that we need to look at to speed up or figure out what's going on, right?
I choose to deny that. I'm blaming Postgres no matter what.
That's cool. I just think more data is always better, so this is great.
Yeah. But yeah, cool. So, I mean, as you saw from this, Andrew, there's nothing that you really need to do extra. Yep. So I look forward to seeing some of the, like the ML inference or the Wazi NN type of stuff plugged in with this. This would be cool.
Yeah, so I don't know if Steve's still on, but yeah, it looks like Steve, you're still on. I sort of, okay, I can't currently run everything that Christoph has built in a way that's easy to run. And I think you were working on something similar to what Brooks did here, where it would make it easier, or at least document what's necessary to make that example run.
Yeah, that's still in the queue. We should we'll try to turn that around pretty soon for you, because that's important to see where the latency is coming in.
Yeah, that would be good. I think that's just the only thing for me is I don't actually know how to run everything Christoph's running, and yeah. Image flip.
That's meme generators, Andrew. I just couldn't help myself.
Thanks. That is me on the right hand side.
I will share Taylor's thing shamelessly. Yeah, maybe for next week, or the week after, when we can get to it, we could actually show the ML stuff with the updated instructions, the full tracing and everything. That would be that'd be a really cool follow-up to this demo. All right, everyone.
Yeah,
well, we're a little bit over 2. Thank you all for coming today. I am happy to hang out for a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and end the call, and we'll see you next Wednesday.